If you've ever looked in the mirror, pinched your inner thighs, and thought, why is this the one place that just won't change no matter what I do? Then this video is for you. Because today I'm going to share the #1 best way to burn inner thigh fat and reduce the appearance of cellulite, and I promise you, it's probably not what you've been told before. So make sure you stay until the end, because one small shift in how you approach this can completely change your results. First, let me clear something up, because this is where most people get frustrated and give up. You cannot spot reduce fat. I know, you've probably tried 100 inner thigh exercises, squeezing, lifting, burning, feeling the shake, and yet the area still looks the same. That's not because you're doing something wrong or not working hard enough. It's because inner thigh fat and cellulite are influenced by hormones, circulation, muscle activation, and overall body fat, not just endless reps of one exercise. So what actually is the #1 best way to burn inner thigh fat and lose cellulite? It's combining full body fat loss with targeted inner thigh activation that improves circulation and muscle tone at the same time. That combination is the key. Not extremes, not punishment, and definitely not hours of cardio. Here's why this works. The inner thighs are an area where blood flow can be slower, especially if you sit a lot, have hormonal fluctuations, or carry stress in your lower body. When circulation is poor, fat is harder to mobilize and cellulite becomes more visible. So instead of attacking the area aggressively, which often causes inflammation, you want to wake it up, strengthen it, and encourage blood flow while your body is already in a fat-burning state. This is why full body movement is essential. When you move your entire body, whether that's through walking, low-impact cardio, or strength training that uses multiple muscle groups, your body starts burning stored fat for energy. As your overall body fat decreases, the inner thighs naturally begin to slim down. There is no shortcut around that part, but the good news is it doesn't have to be exhausting. Now here's where the magic happens. When you add controlled, intentional inner thigh exercises after or during full body movement, you tell your body exactly where to firm and shape. Moves like side lunges, sumo squats, inner thigh lifts, and slow pulses work because they engage the adductor muscles deeply. The key word here is slow. Slow movements create better muscle activation, improve circulation, and reduce that dimpled appearance over time. And let me be very honest with you for a moment. Cellulite is normal. Almost everyone has it. Even fitness models, even people you see online with perfect lighting. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a smoother, firmer look and feeling confident in your own skin. When you improve muscle tone and blood flow in the inner thighs, the skin appears tighter and cellulite becomes far less noticeable. Another huge piece of this puzzle is consistency, not intensity. You don't need to destroy your legs once a week and then be sore for days. In fact, that can slow your progress. What works best is short, regular sessions. 10 to 20 minutes a day of smart movement is far more powerful than one brutal workout you dread. And we can't talk about fat loss without mentioning nutrition, but I'm not talking about starving yourself. When you undereat, your body holds on to fat, especially in stubborn areas like the inner thighs. Focus on eating enough protein to support muscle, drinking plenty of water to reduce fluid retention, and limiting highly processed foods that increase inflammation. When inflammation goes down, cellulite often becomes less visible too. Let me say this clearly, because I know someone needs to hear it. You are not broken. Your body is not failing you. It's responding exactly how it's designed to respond. When you work with it instead of fighting it, things start to change. So if you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. The best way to burn inner thigh fat and reduce cellulite is not chasing quick fixes. It's full body fat burning combined with gentle but effective inner thigh activation, done consistently, with patience and self-respect. If you stay consistent, if you focus on progress instead of perfection, you will notice changes. Your legs will feel stronger, your movement will feel easier, and your confidence will grow long before the mirror shows dramatic results. And those results will come. If this video helped you, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you want a full inner thigh routine you can do at home with no equipment. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking care of your health, and I'll see you in the next video. Inner thigh fat is one of the most stubborn areas of the body, and this is something so many people struggle with quietly, often blaming themselves for it. From a very young age, we're taught that if something on our body isn't changing, it must mean we're not working hard enough, not disciplined enough, or not doing the right workout. But the truth is, inner thigh fat behaves differently than fat in many other areas, and understanding this alone can be incredibly freeing. The inner thighs are heavily influenced by biology, hormones, genetics, and even daily habits like how much we sit or how we move, and none of those things are a personal failure. For many people, the inner thighs are a natural fat storage area, especially for women. Estrogen plays a major role here, encouraging the body to store fat in the hips, thighs, and glutes as a protective mechanism. This is part of how the body is designed, not a flaw. So when someone notices that their arms lean out, their waist shrinks, or their face looks slimmer before their inner thighs change at all, that's not because they're doing something wrong. It's because the body has a natural order in which it loses fat, and the inner thighs are often last on that list. Another reason inner thigh fat feels so stubborn is because it's an area with less natural muscle engagement in everyday life. We walk forward, sit, stand, and climb stairs mostly using the quads, hamstrings, and glutes. The inner thigh muscles don't get a lot of intentional activation unless we specifically train them. Less muscle engagement means lower circulation, and lower circulation makes it harder for the body to access stored fat in that area. Again, this has nothing to do with effort or willpower. You could be extremely active and still notice that this area holds on longer than others. There's also the emotional side of this that doesn't get talked about enough. Inner thigh fat is very visible to us. We see it when we sit, when we wear shorts, when our thighs touch, when clothes fit a certain way. Because it's so noticeable, it becomes easy to fixate on it and turn it into a symbol of what's wrong with our body. Over time, that focus can turn into frustration, shame, or even punishment through extreme workouts or restrictive eating. And ironically, those extremes often make stubborn fat even more resistant because stress hormones like cortisol increase, telling the body to hold on to stored energy. Genetics also play a huge role. Some people are genetically predisposed to store fat in their thighs, just like others store it in their belly or upper arms. You can have two people following the exact same routine, eating similarly, moving similarly, and their bodies will still respond differently. This doesn't mean one is more dedicated or more deserving of results. It simply means their bodies prioritize fat storage and fat loss differently. When you understand this, it becomes easier to stop comparing your progress to someone else's and start respecting your own timeline. One of the biggest myths that keeps people stuck is the idea that doing more inner thigh exercises will automatically melt inner thigh fat. This belief leads to endless squeezing, burning, and overworking the area, often multiple times a day. When results don't come quickly, the self-blame starts creeping in. But fat loss doesn't work that way. Fat is released systemically, not locally, and no amount of targeting can override your body's natural fat loss patterns. Knowing this helps shift the mindset from frustration to strategy. It's also important to understand that inner thigh fat is not an indicator of poor health. You can be strong, fit, active, and metabolically healthy and still have softness in this area. Society often equates leanness in certain body parts with fitness, but that's a very narrow and unrealistic definition. Health is about how your body functions, how you feel, how you move, and how sustainable your habits are, not about whether your inner thighs touch or look a certain way. When people finally hear that it's not their fault, there's often a sense of relief. That relief matters, because progress happens much more easily when you're not fighting your body. When you stop seeing inner thigh fat as a personal flaw and start seeing it as a neutral biological trait, you create space for patience and consistency. And those two things are far more powerful than punishment or desperation. There's also the reality of life phases. Hormonal changes during puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause can all affect fat distribution. Stressful periods, lack of sleep, and emotional strain can also influence where the body stores fat. If your inner thighs changed at some point in your life, that doesn't mean you let yourself go. It means your body adapted to new circumstances in the way it knew how. That adaptation kept you functioning, protected, and resilient. Understanding that inner thigh fat is stubborn by nature allows you to approach change with compassion instead of pressure. Compassion doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing methods that support your body rather than fight it. It means focusing on strength, movement, nourishment, and circulation rather than obsessing over quick fixes. When you remove blame from the process, you become more consistent, and consistency is what eventually creates visible change. Many people are shocked by how much progress they make once they stop attacking their inner thighs and start supporting them. Better movement, smarter training, and balanced nutrition work quietly in the background, even when changes feel slow. And because this area is often the last to change, it also tends to surprise people when it finally does. The softness gradually feels firmer, clothes fit differently, and confidence improves, not because of hate or pressure, but because of understanding and patience. At the end of the day, inner thigh fat being stubborn doesn't mean it's permanent, and it certainly doesn't mean it defines you. It simply means your body has its own priorities, its own rhythms, and its own way of responding to care. When you stop blaming yourself and start working with those rhythms, everything about the journey feels lighter, calmer, and more sustainable, and that shift alone can change the way you see your body every single day. Spot reduction is one of the most common fitness myths, and it's also one of the most damaging when it comes to motivation and self-trust. The idea sounds logical on the surface. If there's fat in a specific area, then working that area harder should make the fat disappear. That belief has been repeated for decades in magazines, workout videos, and social media clips showing people doing endless reps for one body part with promises of fast results. When those results don't come, frustration sets in, and most people turn that frustration inward, assuming they failed rather than questioning the myth itself. The human body simply doesn't work that way. Fat loss is a whole body process controlled by hormones, energy balance, genetics, and the nervous system. When your body needs energy, it pulls from stored fat wherever it chooses, not from the muscle you happen to be using at that moment. You can do 1,000 inner thigh exercises, feel intense burning, and still not see fat loss in that area because the burn you feel is muscular fatigue, not fat melting away. That disconnect between sensation and results is what makes spot reduction so misleading. This myth leads people down a cycle of overworking certain areas while neglecting the bigger picture. Someone who wants slimmer inner thighs may spend all their workout time squeezing, lifting, pulsing, and isolating, while ignoring full body movement, recovery, and nutrition. When weeks pass and nothing changes visually, the natural response is to do even more of the same thing. More reps, more workouts, more intensity. Instead of progress, this often leads to inflammation, soreness, and burnout, which can actually make the area appear puffier or more resistant. Another issue with spot reduction is the unrealistic timeline it creates in people's minds. When you're told that a specific exercise targets a specific fat area, you expect visible changes quickly. When that doesn't happen, it feels personal. You might think your body is stubborn, broken, or different in a bad way. In reality, the only thing that's broken is the expectation. Fat loss takes time, and areas like the inner thighs are often the last place the body lets go of stored fat, no matter how well you're doing everything else. Spot reduction myths also fuel comparison. You see someone online claiming they lost inner thigh fat in 7 days or fixed cellulite with one move, and when your body doesn't respond the same way, doubt creeps in. You start questioning your discipline, your genetics, even your worth. What's rarely shown is lighting, posing, angles, dehydration, or the fact that many of those transformations aren't fat loss at all, but temporary muscle pump or water fluctuation. Comparing yourself to that only deepens frustration and pulls focus away from what actually works. There's also a mental cost to believing in spot reduction. It encourages a relationship with exercise based on punishment rather than support. You're not moving because it feels good or builds strength. You're moving to erase a part of your body you don't like. That mindset creates tension and stress directly affects fat storage through hormones like cortisol. High stress signals the body to hold on to energy, especially in areas it considers protective, which often includes the hips and thighs. When people finally learn that spot reduction isn't real, there's often an initial disappointment followed by relief. Disappointment because it means there's no magic move or shortcut, but relief because it explains why nothing was working despite all the effort. That relief is powerful. It allows you to stop chasing false promises and start focusing on strategies that respect how the body actually functions. Instead of isolating and attacking, you shift toward full-body fat loss, supported by smart, targeted muscle engagement. Understanding this myth also helps reset expectations. Fat loss becomes less about controlling one specific area and more about creating an environment in the body where fat loss can happen naturally. That environment includes consistent movement, adequate fuel, muscle building, good sleep, and stress management. When those pieces are in place, the body gradually releases fat in its own order. You may notice changes in your face, waist, or upper body first, and that's normal. The inner thighs following later doesn't mean failure. It means the process is working. Another overlooked aspect is how spot reduction myths can lead to undereating. When people don't see results from targeted exercises, they often assume they need to eat less. Less food, more workouts, more restriction. This combination slows metabolism and tells the body that energy is scarce. In response, the body becomes more efficient at holding onto fat, especially in stubborn areas. What started as an attempt to fix one area ends up reinforcing the very thing they're trying to change. Letting go of spot reduction allows for a healthier, more sustainable approach. You stop obsessing over one body part and start paying attention to overall strength, endurance, and how you feel day to day. Clothes start fitting differently. Movement feels easier. Energy improves. These changes often show up before dramatic visual shifts, but they are signs that your body is responding positively. When fat loss eventually reaches the inner thighs, it happens as part of a balanced process rather than a forced one. The myth of spot reduction has stayed alive because it's simple and easy to sell. The truth is more complex, but also more empowering. You don't need to fix yourself or fight your body. You need to understand it. Once you do, frustration turns into clarity, and clarity turns into consistency. And consistency, paired with patience, is what creates real change that lasts, without the constant cycle of hope and disappointment, without self-blame, and without chasing promises that were never realistic to begin with. Inner thigh fat and cellulite are influenced by far more than just how much you exercise or how many calories you burn, and this is where so many people get confused and discouraged. The body is not a simple machine where you put in effort and get a perfectly predictable output. It's a living system shaped by hormones, circulation, connective tissue, genetics, and daily habits, all working together in ways we don't always see. When it comes to the inner thighs specifically, these factors play an even bigger role, which explains why this area can look and feel different even when the rest of the body seems to respond quickly to lifestyle changes. Hormones are one of the biggest drivers of fat storage in the inner thighs. Estrogen, in particular, encourages the body to store fat in the hips, thighs, and glutes as part of its natural design. This fat storage pattern is protective and biologically purposeful, especially during reproductive years. That means even people who are active, lean in other areas, and eat well may still notice softness or dimpling in the inner thigh area. Hormonal shifts during puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause can further change how and where fat is stored, often without any change in behavior at all. Stress hormones also play a major role. When the body is under chronic stress, whether from work, emotional strain, lack of sleep, or extreme dieting, cortisol levels rise. Elevated cortisol signals the body to conserve energy, which often leads to increased fat storage in stubborn areas. The inner thighs are one of those areas the body tends to protect. This means that pushing harder, doing more workouts, or eating less can actually backfire if stress levels remain high. The body responds not to effort alone, but to perceived safety and balance. Circulation is another critical factor that directly affects the appearance of inner thigh fat and cellulite. The inner thighs tend to have slower blood flow compared to other muscle groups, especially in people who sit for long periods or don't engage these muscles regularly. Poor circulation means less oxygen and fewer nutrients reaching the tissue, and it also means waste products are cleared more slowly. Over time, this can contribute to the dimpled look associated with cellulite and make fat in that area more resistant to change. Cellulite itself is not fat alone. It's a structural issue involving fat cells pushing up against connective tissue beneath the skin. In areas like the inner thighs, where connective tissue is arranged in a certain way, this effect is more visible. Hormones influence the elasticity and strength of this connective tissue, which is why cellulite often becomes more noticeable during hormonal changes or with age. This is also why someone can lose weight and still see cellulite, because weight loss alone doesn't automatically improve circulation or connective tissue health. Muscle activation plays a surprisingly large role as well. The inner thigh muscles, known as the adductors, are not heavily engaged during many everyday movements. When muscles are underused, they become weaker and less efficient, which affects how the tissue around them looks and feels. Weak or inactive muscles contribute to lower circulation and less support for the skin, making fat and cellulite more noticeable. Strengthening these muscles doesn't directly burn fat from the area, but it improves tone, firmness, and blood flow, which can significantly change appearance over time. Genetics also influence all of this. Some people are genetically predisposed to store more fat in their thighs and hips, while others store more in the abdomen or upper body. Genetics also affect skin thickness, connective tissue structure, and how the body responds to hormones. This means that two people can follow identical routines and still have very different results in their inner thighs. This difference is not a reflection of effort or discipline. It's simply how their bodies are wired. Another important factor is inflammation. Diets high in processed foods, excessive sugar, or foods that trigger sensitivities can increase inflammation in the body. Inflammation affects circulation and fluid balance, often leading to water retention and puffiness, especially in the lower body. This can make the inner thighs appear larger or more dimpled, even if actual fat levels haven't changed. Reducing inflammation through balanced nutrition and hydration can lead to visible improvements without any change on the scale. Hydration itself is often overlooked. Dehydration causes the body to retain water as a protective mechanism, which can worsen the appearance of cellulite. When the body is well hydrated, circulation improves, waste is cleared more efficiently, and the skin often appears smoother. This is one reason people sometimes notice short-term changes in how their thighs look when they improve their water intake, even before fat loss occurs. Understanding that inner thigh fat and cellulite are influenced by multiple systems in the body helps shift the focus away from self-blame. It explains why doing everything right doesn't always lead to immediate visual change, and why progress can feel uneven. The body doesn't prioritize aesthetics. It prioritizes balance, protection, and survival. When those needs are met, fat loss and improved appearance follow naturally, but always on the body's timeline. This knowledge also changes how progress is measured. Instead of obsessing over one area, attention shifts to how the body feels, how strength improves, how energy levels stabilize, and how movement becomes easier. These internal changes often come first, long before the mirror reflects them. Over time, as hormones stabilize, circulation improves, and muscles become stronger, the inner thighs respond as part of a whole-body shift rather than an isolated battle. When people stop fighting their biology and start working with it, results become more sustainable and far less stressful. Supporting hormone balance, improving circulation, strengthening underused muscles, and reducing inflammation create an environment where the body feels safe enough to let go of stored fat. The inner thighs may not change first, but they do change, and when they do, it's the result of a system working in harmony rather than constant pressure, proving that understanding the body is far more powerful than trying to control it. Full body fat burning is essential for slimming the inner thighs because fat loss does not happen in isolation, no matter how targeted your workouts feel. The body stores and releases fat as a whole system, responding to energy demands, hormonal signals, and overall activity levels, rather than to isolated muscle contractions. When people focus only on inner thigh exercises, they often miss the bigger mechanism that actually allows fat to be released in the first place. Without creating a full-body fat-burning environment, the inner thighs simply have no reason to change, even if the muscles underneath are working hard. When you engage in full-body movement, multiple large muscle groups work together, increasing overall energy expenditure. This raises your metabolic demand, encouraging your body to tap into stored fat for fuel. Activities like walking, strength training that uses compound movements, or low-impact cardio stimulate this process far more effectively than isolated exercises ever could. As your body begins to burn fat globally, it draws from storage sites according to its own priorities, and while the inner thighs may not be first, they are part of that overall equation. One of the biggest benefits of full body fat burning is its effect on hormones. Regular movement improves insulin sensitivity, meaning your body becomes better at using carbohydrates for energy rather than storing them as fat. It also helps regulate cortisol, the stress hormone that, when elevated, encourages fat storage in stubborn areas. By supporting hormonal balance, full body exercise creates internal conditions that make fat loss possible instead of constantly fighting against your own physiology. Full body fat burning also improves circulation throughout the entire lower body. Blood flow increases, delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues that may otherwise be underserved, including the inner thighs. Improved circulation helps mobilize stored fat and supports lymphatic drainage, which reduces fluid retention and puffiness. This alone can make the thighs appear slimmer, even before significant fat loss occurs. When circulation improves consistently, the tissue becomes healthier, firmer, and more responsive to change. Another key aspect is muscle development. Full body strength training builds muscle across the legs, glutes, core, and upper body. Muscle is metabolically active tissue, meaning it burns more calories at rest than fat does. As you build more muscle overall, your resting metabolism increases, allowing you to burn more energy throughout the day without additional effort. This steady, background fat burning is what slowly but effectively reduces stubborn fat stores, including those in the inner thighs. People often underestimate how much daily movement contributes to full body fat burning. You don't need extreme workouts to activate this process. Consistent walking, standing more often, stretching, and moving throughout the day all add up. These activities keep the body out of a sedentary state, where fat storage is more likely, and encourage ongoing energy use. Over time, this consistency has a far greater impact than occasional intense workouts that leave you exhausted and inactive for days. Full body fat burning also supports better recovery, which is essential for long-term results. When workouts are balanced and involve the entire body, the risk of overtraining one specific area decreases. Overworked muscles can become inflamed and tight, which reduces circulation and can make an area look larger or more swollen. A full body approach allows muscles to recover properly, maintaining healthy tissue function and supporting a leaner appearance over time. Another important piece is how full body fat burning affects mindset. When the goal shifts from fixing one problem area to improving overall health and strength, motivation becomes more sustainable. You're no longer chasing quick visual changes in one spot, but building habits that support your entire body. This reduces frustration and increases consistency, which is the most important factor in fat loss. A calm, patient approach keeps stress levels lower, and lower stress directly supports fat loss in stubborn areas. Nutrition works hand in hand with full body fat burning. When your body is active in a balanced way, it uses nutrients more efficiently. Protein supports muscle repair, carbohydrates fuel movement, and healthy fats support hormone production. When food is used for energy and recovery instead of being stored, fat loss becomes a natural byproduct rather than a forced outcome. This balanced state is what allows the inner thighs to gradually slim down as part of overall change. It's also worth understanding that full body fat burning doesn't mean pushing to exhaustion. In fact, overly intense training can stall fat loss by increasing stress hormones and reducing recovery. The most effective approach is one that feels challenging but sustainable, allowing you to stay consistent over weeks and months. This steady rhythm signals safety to the body, making it more willing to release stored fat. As full body fat burning continues, changes often appear in unexpected ways. You may notice improved posture, stronger legs, better balance, and increased endurance. Clothes may fit differently before the scale changes. These signs indicate that your body composition is shifting, even if one specific area hasn't caught up yet. Trusting this process is crucial because the inner thighs tend to respond later, but they do respond. When people finally commit to full body fat burning rather than isolated fixes, the experience becomes less stressful and more empowering. Progress feels more predictable, energy levels stabilize, and results last longer. Instead of constantly trying to force change in one area, you allow the body to do what it's designed to do when given the right conditions. Over time, as fat loss occurs systemically and muscles become stronger and more active, the inner thighs naturally become leaner, not because they were attacked directly, but because the entire body moved toward a healthier, more efficient state. The inner thighs often have poor circulation, and this is one of the most overlooked reasons why fat and cellulite tend to linger in that area. Circulation plays a huge role in how the body delivers oxygen and nutrients to tissues, and how efficiently it removes waste products. When blood flow is limited, the tissue becomes less responsive, more stagnant, and slower to change. This doesn't mean anything is wrong with your body, but it does mean that the inner thighs require a different kind of attention compared to areas that are naturally more active and better supplied with blood. Modern lifestyles contribute heavily to this issue. Sitting for long periods, whether at a desk, in a car, or on the couch, restricts blood flow to the lower body. The hips and thighs remain in a bent position for hours, compressing blood vessels and limiting circulation. Over time, this becomes the body's normal state, and areas like the inner thighs receive less consistent blood flow. Reduced circulation makes it harder for fat cells in that area to release stored energy and easier for fluid to accumulate, creating a soft or puffy appearance. Poor circulation also affects the lymphatic system, which is responsible for removing excess fluid and toxins from tissues. Unlike the cardiovascular system, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It relies on muscle movement to circulate fluid. When the inner thighs aren't regularly activated, lymphatic flow in that area slows down. This can lead to fluid retention, swelling, and increased visibility of cellulite. The tissue may feel heavy, tight, or sluggish, all signs that circulation needs support rather than punishment. Temperature can even be an indicator of circulation. Many people notice that their inner thighs feel cooler to the touch compared to other parts of the body. This is a subtle sign that blood flow is lower in that area. Cold tissue is less metabolically active, meaning fat stored there is harder to access. Warming the tissue through movement increases blood flow, making the area more responsive over time. Hormones also interact with circulation. Estrogen influences blood vessel behavior and fat storage patterns, and in the inner thighs, this combination can create an environment where circulation is naturally lower. This is one reason women are more likely to experience cellulite and stubborn thigh fat than men. Hormonal changes throughout life can further impact circulation, sometimes making the inner thighs feel more resistant despite consistent effort elsewhere. When circulation is poor, aggressive training often makes things worse rather than better. Intense, high-impact exercises that cause excessive muscle tension can restrict blood flow even further. Tight muscles compress blood vessels, reducing circulation instead of improving it. This is why some people notice that their inner thighs feel sore, tight, or inflamed after extreme workouts, yet look no leaner. The goal should be to encourage blood flow, not restrict it. Gentle, controlled movement is far more effective for improving circulation in the inner thighs. When muscles contract and relax rhythmically, they act like pumps, pushing blood and lymphatic fluid through the tissue. Slow, intentional movements increase circulation without creating excessive tension. Over time, this improves tissue health, making fat loss and skin changes more likely to occur as part of a broader process. Breathing also affects circulation more than most people realize. Shallow breathing keeps the body in a stress state, limiting blood flow to the extremities. Deep, controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, allowing blood vessels to dilate and circulation to improve. When movement is combined with steady breathing, the inner thighs receive more oxygen and nutrients, supporting healthier tissue function. Hydration plays a supporting role here as well. Thick, dehydrated blood doesn't circulate as efficiently as well-hydrated blood. When the body lacks sufficient water, circulation slows and fluid retention increases. This can make the inner thighs appear more swollen or dimpled. Proper hydration supports smoother blood flow and helps the lymphatic system remove excess fluid, contributing to a firmer appearance over time. Massage and self-myofascial release can also improve circulation in the inner thighs. Gentle pressure increases blood flow to the area and helps release tight connective tissue that may be restricting circulation. While massage alone won't burn fat, it can support the conditions that allow fat loss to happen more easily when combined with movement and balanced nutrition. The key point is that poor circulation is not a flaw, but a signal. It's the body's way of saying that the area needs more consistent, supportive movement rather than force. When circulation improves, the tissue becomes warmer, softer, and more responsive. Fat cells receive signals to release stored energy, fluid retention decreases, and the appearance of cellulite often improves as the tissue structure becomes healthier. Progress in an area with poor circulation is rarely immediate. It requires patience and repetition. Each time you move, stretch, or activate the inner thighs in a gentle, controlled way, you're sending more blood to the area. These small improvements add up over weeks and months, gradually changing how the tissue functions and looks. This process may feel slow, but it's far more sustainable and effective than aggressive approaches that ignore circulation entirely. Understanding the role of circulation shifts the goal from attacking fat to improving tissue health. When the inner thighs are better supplied with blood, oxygen, and nutrients, they function more like other muscle groups that respond quickly to training. The area no longer feels stuck or resistant. Instead, it becomes part of the body's natural fat burning and recovery processes, responding gradually but steadily as circulation improves and balance is restored. Aggressive workouts can increase inflammation and actually make results worse, especially in sensitive areas like the inner thighs. This goes against what many people have been taught, which is that more intensity automatically equals better results. The truth is that the body responds not just to effort, but to how it perceives stress. When workouts are overly intense, excessively long, or done without proper recovery, the body interprets this as a threat rather than a signal to adapt. In response, it activates protective mechanisms that can slow fat loss and make certain areas appear more resistant. Inflammation is part of the body's natural healing response, and some inflammation after exercise is normal. However, when inflammation becomes chronic, it creates an environment where progress stalls. Aggressive workouts performed too frequently don't give the muscles, connective tissue, or nervous system enough time to recover. Instead of getting stronger and leaner, the tissue stays irritated. In areas like the inner thighs where circulation may already be limited, this irritation can lead to swelling, tightness, and a puffy appearance rather than visible toning. High-intensity training places a significant demand on the nervous system. When the nervous system is constantly overstimulated, stress hormones like cortisol remain elevated. Cortisol has a direct impact on fat storage, particularly in stubborn areas of the body. Elevated cortisol signals the body to hold onto energy reserves, making fat loss more difficult. This is why people can work extremely hard, sweat heavily, and still see little to no change in areas like the inner thighs, or even notice that they look worse despite increased effort. Aggressive training often leads to muscle tension rather than muscle activation. When movements are rushed, forced, or performed with poor control, muscles contract and stay tight instead of contracting and relaxing efficiently. Tight muscles restrict blood flow, reducing oxygen and nutrient delivery to the tissue. This lack of circulation contributes to slower recovery and a buildup of waste products, which can worsen inflammation and make the area feel heavy or sore. Over time, this creates a cycle where the body never fully recovers and visible results remain out of reach. Another issue with aggressive workouts is the tendency to overwork the same area repeatedly. When someone is focused on changing their inner thighs, they may train them intensely day after day without adequate rest. Muscles need recovery time to repair and adapt. Without rest, microtears accumulate, inflammation persists, and muscle function declines. Instead of becoming firmer and more toned, the area can become fatigued and less responsive, reinforcing the belief that it's stubborn or unchangeable. Aggressive workouts also increase the risk of compensatory movement patterns. When the body is fatigued or stressed, it looks for shortcuts. Other muscles take over, and the intended muscles may not be working as effectively as you think. This means you can feel intense effort without actually improving muscle activation in the target area. In the case of inner thighs, this often results in the quads or hip flexors doing most of the work while the adductors remain understimulated, further limiting progress. Inflammation doesn't just affect muscle tissue. It also impacts connective tissue and fluid balance. Chronic inflammation can lead to increased water retention as the body tries to protect irritated tissue. This fluid retention can make the inner thighs appear larger or more dimpled, even if no fat has been gained. People often mistake this for fat gain and respond by increasing workout intensity even more, which only worsens the underlying inflammation. There's also a psychological cost to aggressive training. When workouts are associated with pain, dread, or exhaustion, consistency suffers. People may push themselves hard for a short period, then burn out and stop altogether. This stop-and-start pattern is far less effective than a steady, moderate approach. Fat loss and muscle tone are the result of cumulative effort over time, not short bursts of extreme intensity followed by long periods of inactivity. Gentler, controlled workouts support better communication between the muscles and the nervous system. When movements are deliberate and properly paced, muscles learn to activate efficiently, circulation improves, and recovery is enhanced. This approach may not feel as dramatic as aggressive training, but it creates the conditions needed for lasting change. Over time, the body becomes stronger, leaner, and more resilient without the constant cycle of inflammation and fatigue. Recovery is just as important as training itself. Sleep, rest days, and low-intensity movement allow inflammation to resolve and tissues to repair. When recovery is prioritized, hormone levels stabilize, stress decreases, and fat loss becomes more accessible. In this state, the body feels safe enough to release stored fat rather than clinging to it as a protective measure. Understanding that aggressive workouts can work against your goals is a turning point for many people. It shifts the focus from pushing harder to training smarter. Instead of viewing rest as weakness, it becomes part of the strategy. Instead of chasing exhaustion, the goal becomes progress you can sustain. This mindset change often leads to better results not just in the inner thighs, but throughout the entire body. When inflammation is reduced and recovery improves, the body responds more predictably. Muscles tone, circulation increases, and fat loss occurs gradually as part of a balanced process. The inner thighs, which are often sensitive to stress and inflammation, finally have the opportunity to change. Not because they were forced, but because the environment around them became supportive enough for real, lasting transformation. Combining full body movement with targeted inner thigh activation is the key because it works with the body's natural systems instead of trying to override them. Full body movement creates the fat-burning environment, while targeted activation tells the body how to shape and support specific areas. When these two elements work together, results become more visible, more balanced, and far more sustainable than relying on either one alone. This approach respects how fat loss actually happens while still addressing the desire to firm and tone the inner thighs. Full body movement is what signals the body to release stored fat. When large muscle groups are engaged, energy demands increase, and the body looks for fuel sources to meet that demand. This is when stored fat becomes accessible. Without this signal, targeted exercises alone don't create enough metabolic demand to influence fat loss. You may feel burning or fatigue in the inner thighs, but without overall fat burning, the appearance of the area is unlikely to change in a meaningful way. Targeted inner thigh activation serves a different but equally important purpose. It strengthens the muscles that support the area, improves circulation, and enhances muscle tone. When these muscles are active and strong, they create a firmer foundation beneath the skin. This doesn't remove fat directly, but it improves how the area looks and feels as fat loss occurs systemically. Without targeted activation, the inner thighs may become smaller but still lack tone, which can leave the area looking soft or uneven. The order and balance of these elements matter. When full body movement comes first, the body is already in a fat-burning state. Adding targeted inner thigh exercises at this point takes advantage of increased blood flow and muscle readiness. The inner thighs are warmer, circulation is improved, and muscle fibers are more responsive. This makes targeted exercises more effective and reduces the risk of strain or inflammation. This combination also addresses one of the most common frustrations people experience, which is feeling like they are working hard without seeing results. Full body movement alone can lead to fat loss, but changes in specific areas may feel slow. Targeted activation bridges that gap by improving muscle engagement and circulation where people want to see change. Together, they create both internal and external progress that reinforces motivation and consistency. From a physiological standpoint, combining these approaches improves insulin sensitivity and hormone balance. Full body exercise helps regulate blood sugar and reduce stress hormones, while targeted activation supports muscle health and tissue function. This balanced state makes it easier for the body to release fat without triggering defensive responses like inflammation or fat retention. The inner thighs, which are sensitive to hormonal and circulatory changes, benefit greatly from this supportive environment. This approach also reduces the temptation to overtrain. When people understand that both global movement and local activation have roles, they are less likely to obsess over isolating one area. Workouts become more balanced, recovery improves, and progress becomes more consistent. Instead of exhausting the inner thighs with daily intense sessions, targeted activation is used strategically, allowing the muscles to recover and adapt properly. Another benefit is improved movement quality. Targeted inner thigh activation enhances stability in the hips and knees, which improves form during full body exercises. Better form reduces strain on joints and increases overall workout efficiency. As movement becomes smoother and more controlled, muscles work together more effectively, leading to better results across the entire lower body. Consistency becomes easier with this combined approach because it feels more achievable. Full body movement can be as simple as walking, light cardio, or functional strength training. Targeted activation doesn't require hours of effort, just focused, controlled movements for a short period. This makes it easier to integrate into daily life without feeling overwhelmed or exhausted. Over time, this method creates visible changes that feel earned and stable. The inner thighs gradually become firmer, stronger, and leaner as part of a whole body transformation. Because the process is balanced, results are more likely to last. There's no rebound effect from extreme restriction or overtraining, just steady progress that builds confidence. This combination also supports a healthier mindset. Instead of viewing the inner thighs as a problem area that needs to be fixed, they become part of a body that's being strengthened and supported. Movement becomes an act of care rather than punishment. This shift in perspective reduces stress, which further supports fat loss and overall well-being. As the body adapts, improvements show up in subtle ways before dramatic visual changes appear. Balance improves, strength increases, and daily movement feels easier. Clothes fit differently. These signs indicate that the body is responding even if the mirror hasn't fully caught up yet. Trusting this process is essential because the inner thighs often change later than other areas. When full body movement and targeted inner thigh activation work together consistently, the body has no reason to resist change. Fat loss occurs naturally, muscles become stronger and more supportive, and circulation improves. The inner thighs respond not because they were attacked, but because they were included in a system that promotes overall health, strength, and balance, allowing real change to unfold over time in a way that feels sustainable and empowering. Slow, controlled inner thigh exercises improve muscle tone and blood flow in a way that fast, aggressive movements never can, and this difference is what makes them so effective over time. When movements are slow, the muscles stay engaged longer, which increases time under tension. This sustained engagement wakes up the inner thigh muscles more deeply, especially the adductors, which are often underused in daily life. Instead of relying on momentum, the muscles are forced to do the work, creating a stronger connection between the brain and the muscle that leads to better activation and visible firmness over time. Fast movements tend to shift effort away from the inner thighs and into surrounding muscles like the quads or hip flexors. When this happens, you may feel tired or out of breath, but the inner thighs aren't receiving the full benefit of the exercise. Slow movements eliminate this compensation. Every inch of the motion is controlled, allowing you to feel exactly where the work is happening. This precision matters because the inner thighs respond best to intentional activation rather than rushed repetition. Blood flow is another major reason slow exercises are so effective. When muscles contract and relax slowly, they act like pumps, encouraging blood to move through the tissue. Increased blood flow brings oxygen and nutrients to the area, while helping remove waste products and excess fluid. This improved circulation supports healthier tissue, which directly affects how the inner thighs look and feel. Over time, better circulation makes the area warmer, more responsive, and less prone to that heavy or stagnant feeling many people notice. Slow movements also reduce the risk of inflammation. Rapid, Jerky exercises place sudden stress on muscles and connective tissue, which can lead to irritation and swelling. In an area like the inner thighs, where circulation may already be limited, this kind of stress can slow progress. Controlled movements keep the nervous system calm and allow muscles to work without triggering a stress response. This creates an environment where recovery is easier and results are more consistent. Muscle tone improves when muscles are trained through their full range of motion with control. Slow exercises allow you to fully lengthen and shorten the inner thigh muscles, which enhances flexibility and strength at the same time. This balanced development supports better posture and alignment in the hips and legs. When muscles are both strong and flexible, they support the skin more evenly, contributing to a smoother appearance as fat loss occurs systemically. Another benefit of slow inner thigh exercises is improved mind-muscle connection. When you move slowly, you become more aware of how the muscle feels as it works. This awareness helps ensure that the correct muscles are being activated, not just moved through space. Over time, this connection carries over into daily activities and other workouts, increasing overall muscle engagement and circulation in the inner thighs, even outside of dedicated exercise sessions. Slow, controlled training also supports joint health. The hips and knees rely on strong inner thighs for stability. When exercises are rushed, joints can take on unnecessary stress. Slow movements allow joints to move smoothly and safely, reducing strain and supporting long-term consistency. When the body feels safe during movement, it's more likely to adapt positively rather than resist change. Breathing naturally syncs better with slow movements as well. Controlled breathing during slow exercises helps keep the body in a relaxed state, which supports blood vessel dilation and circulation. This relaxed state reduces stress hormones that can interfere with fat loss. When breathing and movement are aligned, the inner thighs receive more oxygen and nutrients, enhancing the effectiveness of each repetition. Slow inner thigh exercises are also easier to recover from. Because they don't rely on explosive force, they create less muscle damage and soreness. This allows for more frequent practice without overtraining. Consistency is one of the most important factors in improving muscle tone and circulation, and slow exercises make it possible to train the inner thighs regularly without burnout or excessive fatigue. Over time, these small, controlled efforts accumulate. The muscles become stronger and more active, circulation improves, and the tissue becomes healthier. While changes may feel subtle at first, they are foundational. As full body fat loss progresses, the improved muscle tone and blood flow in the inner thighs enhance the visible results, making the area look firmer and more defined rather than soft or uneven. This approach also shifts expectations. Instead of chasing a quick burn or dramatic exhaustion, the focus becomes quality of movement. Progress is measured in how the muscles feel, how movement improves, and how the body responds over weeks rather than days. This mindset reduces frustration and supports patience, which is essential for areas that change more slowly. When slow, controlled inner thigh exercises are practiced consistently, they create lasting change. The muscles learn to engage properly, circulation becomes more efficient, and the area integrates more fully into the body's overall movement patterns. Rather than fighting the inner thighs, this method supports them, allowing tone and firmness to develop naturally as part of a balanced, sustainable process that continues to work quietly in the background long after each workout ends. Cellulite is normal, and understanding this can completely change the way people view their bodies and their health. For years, cellulite has been framed as something that needs to be eliminated, hidden, or fixed, when in reality it is a common and natural characteristic of human skin. The majority of women and many men have cellulite regardless of their weight, fitness level, or lifestyle. It appears on bodies that are active, sedentary, lean, muscular, young, and older, which alone should be enough to show that cellulite is not a sign of laziness, poor health, or lack of effort. Cellulite forms because of the way fat, connective tissue, and skin are structured beneath the surface. In certain areas, particularly the thighs, hips, and glutes, fat cells push upward against connective tissue, creating a dimpled or uneven appearance on the skin. This structural arrangement is heavily influenced by genetics and hormones, especially estrogen. That means cellulite is largely determined by factors that are outside of personal control. Two people can live very similar lifestyles and still have very different amounts of visible cellulite, and neither body is more correct than the other. One of the biggest misconceptions is that cellulite only appears when someone has excess body fat. This simply isn't true. Many people who are slim and athletic still have noticeable cellulite, especially when the skin is relaxed or under certain lighting. Fat loss alone does not guarantee smooth skin because cellulite is not just fat. It involves connective tissue elasticity, circulation, and fluid balance. This is why people can lose weight and still notice cellulite, or even see it become more visible as skin elasticity changes. The normalization of cellulite has been slow because of how rarely it's shown in media. Images are often edited, posed, or lit in a way that minimizes natural skin texture. This creates unrealistic expectations and makes people believe that smooth skin is the standard, when in reality it's the exception. When someone compares their real body to an altered image, it's easy to feel like something is wrong. The truth is that cellulite-free skin is often the result of genetics, lighting, angles, or digital editing, not superior habits or discipline. Cellulite also changes over time, and that's normal too. Hormonal shifts, aging, pregnancy, stress, and changes in activity levels can all influence how visible cellulite appears. Skin becomes thinner with age, connective tissue changes, and circulation patterns shift. These changes are part of the body's natural evolution. Viewing them as flaws creates unnecessary stress and dissatisfaction, while viewing them as neutral changes allows for a healthier relationship with the body. Consistency also reduces the emotional roller coaster associated with fitness. Intense workouts can create a cycle of guilt and reward, where people feel proud after pushing hard and guilty when they can't maintain that level. This emotional swing can lead to an unhealthy relationship with exercise. Consistent training fosters a more stable mindset. Movement becomes something you do because it supports you, not something you use to punish yourself. In areas like the inner thighs, where changes often happen later in the process, consistency is especially important. These areas respond to steady improvements in circulation, muscle activation, and overall fat loss. Sporadic intensity doesn't give the body enough time to adapt. Consistent movement gradually improves tissue health, making the area more responsive over time. Consistency doesn't mean doing the same thing every day or never challenging yourself. It means creating a routine that you can maintain long-term, with room for variation and progression. Some days may feel harder, some easier, but the overall pattern remains stable. This stability is what allows the body to change in a lasting way. Over time, consistent effort builds trust between you and your body. You learn how it responds, what it needs, and how to support it. This trust reduces frustration and increases patience. You stop chasing quick fixes and start appreciating gradual improvement. This shift alone can make the process feel lighter and more empowering. When people finally embrace consistency over intensity, results often improve in unexpected ways. Energy levels stabilize. Workouts feel more enjoyable. Progress becomes more predictable. And while the changes may not happen overnight, they are far more likely to last. In the long run, it's not the hardest workouts that shape the body, but the ones you can return to again and again, allowing small, steady efforts to compound into meaningful transformation over time. Undereating can cause the body to hold on to stubborn fat, and this is one of the most misunderstood aspects of fat loss. Many people assume that eating less is always the fastest way to get leaner, especially in areas like the inner thighs. At first, cutting calories may lead to quick changes on the scale, but what's often happening beneath the surface tells a very different story. When the body doesn't receive enough energy, it shifts into a protective mode designed to keep you alive, not to improve your appearance. The body's primary goal is survival. When food intake drops too low for too long, the body interprets this as scarcity. In response, it adapts by conserving energy. Metabolism slows, movement efficiency increases, and the body becomes more selective about where it releases fat. Stubborn areas like the inner thighs are often the last places the body is willing to draw from because they are considered long-term energy reserves. This is why extreme dieting so often leads to plateaus or regaining weight later on. Hormones are deeply affected by undereating. Leptin, a hormone that helps regulate appetite and metabolism, decreases when calorie intake is too low. Lower leptin levels signal the body to conserve energy and increase hunger. At the same time, cortisol levels often rise, especially when undereating is combined with intense exercise. Elevated cortisol encourages fat storage and muscle breakdown, making it harder to achieve a toned appearance. This hormonal environment works directly against the goal of fat loss. Undereating also affects thyroid function. The thyroid plays a key role in regulating metabolism. When the body senses prolonged calorie restriction, thyroid hormone production can decrease. This slows metabolic rate and reduces the body's ability to burn calories efficiently. Even if you continue eating very little, fat loss can stall because the body has adapted to function on less. This adaptation is not a failure of willpower, but a natural biological response. Muscle loss is another consequence of undereating. Without sufficient protein and overall energy, the body may break down muscle tissue to meet its needs. Muscle is metabolically active, meaning it helps burn calories even at rest. Losing muscle lowers metabolic rate and reduces the body's capacity to burn fat. This often leads to a softer appearance, even if weight decreases, and can make stubborn areas like the inner thighs look less firm. Energy levels also suffer when food intake is too low. Fatigue, irritability, and brain fog are common signs that the body isn't getting enough fuel. When energy is low, movement tends to decrease, even subconsciously. You may fidget less, walk less, or move more cautiously. These small reductions in daily activity significantly impact overall energy expenditure. Over time, this decrease can offset the calorie deficit created by undereating, further stalling fat loss. Undereating can also disrupt sleep, which plays a crucial role in body composition. Poor sleep affects hormones that regulate hunger and fullness, often increasing cravings and reducing impulse control. Lack of sleep also elevates cortisol and reduces insulin sensitivity, both of which make fat loss more difficult. The inner thighs, being sensitive to hormonal changes, are particularly affected by this disrupted environment. Another overlooked effect of undereating is its impact on nutrient intake. When calories are too low, it becomes difficult to consume enough vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients. These nutrients are essential for hormone production, muscle function, and circulation. Deficiencies can impair recovery, increase inflammation, and worsen the appearance of cellulite. Even with consistent exercise, the body cannot change effectively without adequate nutritional support. Psychologically, undereating creates a cycle of restriction and obsession. Constant hunger and food rules consume mental energy, increasing stress and reducing enjoyment of daily life. This stress further contributes to hormonal imbalances that promote fat retention. Over time, the effort required to maintain extreme restriction becomes unsustainable, often leading to overeating or cycles of dieting that damage metabolic health. Adequate nutrition sends a very different message to the body. When you eat enough to support movement, recovery, and daily function, the body feels safe. In this state, hormones stabilize, metabolism remains active, and fat loss becomes more accessible. Protein supports muscle repair, carbohydrates fuel workouts and circulation, and fats support hormone production. Together, these nutrients create an environment where the body can release stored fat without fear of starvation. Eating enough also improves workout quality. When fueled properly, you can move with more strength, better form, and greater consistency. This improves muscle activation in areas like the inner thighs and enhances circulation. Better workouts don't require more intensity, just adequate energy. Over time, this leads to improved muscle tone and a healthier body composition. Letting go of the belief that eating less is always better can be challenging, especially in a culture that glorifies restriction. However, true progress often begins when food is viewed as support rather than an obstacle. Nourishing the body appropriately allows it to function optimally, and an optimally functioning body is far more capable of changing its composition in a sustainable way. When people increase their intake to a level that supports their activity and recovery, they often notice improved energy, better mood, and more consistent progress. Stubborn areas may finally begin to respond as hormonal balance improves and stress decreases. This process requires patience and trust, but it aligns with how the body is designed to work. Undereating may seem like control, But nourishment is what creates real change. When the body is fed, supported, and allowed to feel secure, it no longer needs to hold on to fat as protection. Instead, it can gradually release stored energy, strengthen muscle, and move toward a healthier, more balanced state where fat loss becomes a natural outcome rather than a constant struggle. Sustainable habits lead to long-term inner thigh fat loss and confidence because the body responds best to what it can maintain, not to what shocks it temporarily. Quick fixes often promise dramatic results, but they rely on extremes that the body cannot sustain for long. When those extremes end, the body returns to its previous state or sometimes rebounds even further. Sustainable habits work differently. They create gradual change by aligning daily actions with how the body naturally adapts over time. Long-term fat loss is not the result of one workout, one diet, or one phase of intense effort. It's the outcome of repeated behaviors that signal safety, consistency, and balance. When movement, nutrition, rest, and stress management are practiced regularly, the body no longer feels the need to protect stored energy. In this environment, fat loss becomes a slow but steady process rather than a constant battle. The inner thighs, which often resist rapid change, respond best to this calm and consistent approach. Sustainable habits reduce stress on both the body and the mind. Extreme routines create pressure, guilt, and anxiety around food and exercise. This stress elevates cortisol, disrupts hormones, and interferes with fat loss. Habits that feel manageable reduce mental strain, allowing the nervous system to stay regulated. A regulated nervous system supports better sleep, digestion, and hormonal balance, all of which influence how the body stores and releases fat. Consistency becomes easier when habits fit into real life. Walking regularly, doing short strength sessions, eating balanced meals, and staying hydrated are actions that can be maintained even during busy or stressful periods. Because these habits don't require perfection, they're less likely to be abandoned. Each day builds on the last, creating momentum that leads to visible change over time. This momentum is far more powerful than bursts of motivation that fade quickly. Sustainable habits also support muscle development, which plays a key role in shaping the inner thighs. Regular strength training with appropriate recovery builds muscle gradually. As muscle tone improves, the thighs appear firmer and more defined. This change happens alongside fat loss rather than in opposition to it. Because the process is steady, the body adapts without triggering inflammation or fatigue that can stall progress. Nutrition habits that are sustainable focus on nourishment rather than restriction. Eating enough to support energy, recovery, and daily function helps stabilize hormones and metabolism. Balanced meals reduce cravings and prevent cycles of deprivation and overeating. When food is consistent, the body feels secure, making it more willing to release stored fat. This security is especially important for stubborn areas that respond poorly to stress and scarcity. Rest and recovery are often overlooked habits, yet they are essential for long-term results. Adequate sleep allows the body to repair tissue, regulate hormones, and manage stress. Chronic sleep deprivation increases hunger hormones and reduces insulin sensitivity, making fat loss more difficult. Prioritizing rest supports the entire fat loss process and contributes to better mood, focus, and resilience, which in turn improves consistency with other habits. Sustainable habits also change how people relate to their bodies. Instead of constantly evaluating and criticizing, attention shifts to how the body feels and functions. Strength gains, improved mobility, and increased energy become sources of confidence. This confidence is not dependent on a specific appearance, but on trust in the body's ability to adapt and improve. As confidence grows, motivation becomes internal rather than driven by fear or dissatisfaction. Inner thigh fat loss achieved through sustainable habits tends to last because the behaviors that created the change are still in place. There is no abrupt return to old patterns because there was no extreme phase to escape from. The body remains in a balanced state where fat loss and muscle maintenance coexist. This stability makes it easier to maintain results without constant vigilance or anxiety. Sustainable habits also allow for flexibility. Life changes, schedules shift, and energy levels vary. A sustainable approach adapts to these changes rather than collapsing under them. Missing a workout or enjoying a meal doesn't derail progress because the overall pattern remains intact. This flexibility reduces all-or-nothing thinking, which is a common barrier to long-term success. Over time, the accumulation of small, supportive habits creates profound change. The inner thighs become stronger, circulation improves, and fat loss occurs gradually. Because the process is gentle, the skin and connective tissue adapt as well, contributing to a smoother appearance. These changes feel natural rather than forced, reinforcing confidence and self-trust. Confidence built through sustainable habits is deeper than confidence based on appearance alone. It comes from knowing you can care for your body consistently without extremes. It comes from feeling capable, strong, and grounded in your choices. This confidence doesn't disappear with a bad day or a temporary setback because it's rooted in behavior, not perfection. When sustainable habits guide the journey, inner thigh fat loss becomes part of a larger transformation that includes improved health, resilience, and self-respect. The body responds in its own time, releasing fat as balance is restored. The process may be slower than quick fixes promise, but it creates results that last and a sense of confidence that grows stronger with each day of consistency, allowing both the body and mind to move forward together in a way that feels supportive, empowering, and real. Another reason cellulite has been so heavily stigmatized is because it's often associated with femininity. Estrogen affects how fat is stored and how connective tissue is arranged, making cellulite more common in women. This doesn't mean it's a problem. It means it's a natural result of hormonal design. Treating cellulite as something shameful reinforces the idea that natural female bodies need to be corrected, which can deeply affect self-esteem and body image. Understanding that cellulite is normal doesn't mean giving up on health or strength. It means separating appearance from worth. You can work on improving muscle tone, circulation, and overall fitness while still accepting that some degree of cellulite may remain. Health is not defined by smooth skin. It's defined by how your body functions, how strong you feel, how well you move, and how supported your nervous system and hormones are. When people stop seeing cellulite as a failure, they often experience relief. That relief reduces stress, and lower stress has real physiological benefits. Chronic stress affects hormone balance, inflammation, and fat storage. When the pressure to look a certain way decreases, the body often responds positively. Ironically, acceptance can lead to better physical outcomes than constant criticism and pressure. It's also important to recognize how language around cellulite shapes behavior. When cellulite is labeled as bad or undesirable, people are more likely to engage in extreme dieting, overtraining, or expensive treatments that promise unrealistic results. These approaches can harm both physical and mental health. When cellulite is understood as normal, choices become more grounded. Movement becomes about strength and mobility. Nutrition becomes about nourishment. Results become more sustainable because they're not driven by shame. Cellulite does not limit what your body can do. It doesn't affect performance, endurance, or strength. Some of the strongest athletes in the world have cellulite. Some of the healthiest people you know likely have it too. It does not prevent you from wearing certain clothes, enjoying movement, or feeling confident, unless you're taught to believe that it should. Confidence doesn't come from the absence of cellulite, but from the absence of constant self-judgment. The conversation around cellulite is slowly changing as more people share unfiltered images and honest experiences. Seeing real skin texture helps recalibrate expectations and reminds people that they're not alone. This visibility matters because it replaces isolation with understanding. When people realize that cellulite is common, the power it holds over self-esteem begins to fade. Accepting that cellulite is normal creates space to focus on what truly matters. Strength, energy, mobility, mental clarity, and emotional well-being all have a far greater impact on quality of life than smooth skin ever could. When the body is supported through balanced movement, proper nourishment, and adequate rest, it functions better regardless of whether cellulite is present. Cellulite doesn't define beauty, health, or effort. It's simply one of many natural variations of the human body. When this is fully understood, the inner thighs and every other part of the body stop being problems to solve and start being parts of a system that deserves care, respect, and patience, allowing confidence to grow from understanding rather than from chasing an impossible standard. Consistency matters more than workout intensity, especially when it comes to changing stubborn areas like the inner thighs. Many people believe that if they just push harder, sweat more, and exhaust themselves, results will come faster. This mindset often leads to short bursts of extreme effort followed by long periods of fatigue, soreness, or burnout. While intense workouts can feel productive in the moment, they are rarely sustainable, and sustainability is what actually drives lasting physical change. The body responds best to repeated signals over time. When you move consistently, even at a moderate level, you send a steady message that movement is part of your routine. This allows muscles, hormones, and metabolic processes to adapt gradually and efficiently. In contrast, inconsistent high-intensity workouts send mixed signals. One day the body is pushed to its limits, the next it's in recovery or inactivity. This stop-and-start pattern makes it harder for the body to settle into a fat-burning and muscle-building rhythm. Consistency supports hormonal balance, which is critical for fat loss. Regular movement helps regulate insulin, improves stress resilience, and supports healthy cortisol patterns. When workouts are too intense or sporadic, stress hormones can spike and remain elevated, making fat loss more difficult. Moderate, consistent activity keeps the nervous system calmer, signaling safety rather than threat. When the body feels safe, it's more willing to release stored fat instead of holding on to it as a protective measure. Another reason consistency matters more than intensity is its effect on recovery. Muscles need time to repair and adapt, and consistent moderate training allows this process to happen smoothly. Extremely intense workouts create more muscle damage and inflammation, requiring longer recovery periods. If recovery is incomplete, performance declines, motivation drops, and the risk of injury increases. Consistent training avoids this cycle by allowing the body to recover while still staying active. Consistency also improves movement quality. When you practice movements regularly, your body becomes more efficient at performing them. Muscle activation improves, coordination increases, and exercises feel easier over time. This efficiency means you get more benefit from each session without needing to increase intensity. Better movement quality leads to better results, especially in areas like the inner thighs that require intentional activation. Habit formation is another powerful aspect of consistency. When exercise becomes a regular part of your routine, it requires less mental effort. You don't have to rely on motivation or willpower to get started. Intense workouts often feel intimidating, making it easier to skip sessions. Consistent, manageable workouts lower the barrier to action, making it more likely that you'll keep showing up day after day. Consistency also supports better lifestyle integration. Movement doesn't exist in isolation from sleep, nutrition, and stress. When workouts are overly intense, they can interfere with sleep quality, increase appetite dysregulation, and elevate stress. Moderate, consistent movement complements other healthy habits rather than competing with them. Better sleep supports recovery. Balanced appetite supports nourishment. Lower stress supports fat loss. All of these factors work together to create visible change over time. One of the most frustrating experiences for many people is working extremely hard without seeing results. Often, the issue isn't lack of effort, but lack of consistency. Results are cumulative. Each workout builds on the previous one, even if the changes aren't immediately visible. Missing weeks due to exhaustion or injury breaks that chain of adaptation. Consistent training keeps progress moving forward, even if it feels slow at times.